Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meridith Powell, brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
Hey, this is Meridith Powell, and you know what time it is. It is one of my favorite times of the week time when we are going to dive in to really learning what it takes to turn uncertainty to your greatest competitive advantage. Today, I've got with me Dr. Cindy McGovern. She is known as the First Lady of Sales, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and sales strategist. And welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Meredith.
Good to see you too. I'm excited to have you here. And we have so much to talk about. But I always like to start with just having you tell our guests just a little bit about you and a little bit about your journey and a little bit about your take on uncertainty.
So, Cindy McGovern, I am the founder of Orange Leaf Consulting. I've been in sales and leadership and consulting for a couple decades. And my whole goal is to help people to realize and reach their personal potential and professional potential. And uncertainty is the thing in life. And it's about the way that you have a mindset of approach to it. And so I want people to recognize that they have to give themselves permission to step into that with some true bravery, let's say, but it's the way that we talk to ourselves and sell ourselves on the idea that we can handle it, that we have the authority to handle it, kind of get those backup singers in our heads singing in harmony so that you can handle the change and the way that you approach it.
So it's really interesting that you bring up permission, because you've got a brand new book out called The Permission Mission. So talk to us a little bit about what does permission mission mean? Why write the book? What was your inspiration for it? And then I want to dive into some of the details.
Thank you. So permission it's an interesting word, right? Like we learn this when we're a kid and it's permission, mother may I is sort of a thing. But it's really interesting because one of the things that I recognize is we talk a lot about finding confidence. We talk about things like imposter syndrome. And as I dove deeper in being an executive coach and working with clients, it really is about the lack of permission. And it's not external, it's internal. And it's that we hold ourselves back. It's like there's an invisible velvet rope that we put up. And this is why we don't create change. We don't embrace change. We don't walk forward in our own lives a lot of times because we lack permission. And we're not willing to give ourselves permission. We're willing to say, no, I won't let myself do that. I won't allow it. And it's like we don't even take our own advice. We'll give it to somebody else, but we won't take it ourselves. And so as I recognized that pattern, I thought, why hasn't anybody written this book? Why aren't we talking about this? And so that drove me to want to start talking about it. And then it became a keynote and then it became a book.
So let me ask you this. Is this a pattern? Was when you discovered this, was it more like a trend or something you were seeing in others, or do you have a personal story around it?
Both. Absolutely. Okay. 100%. Dr. Heal Thyself, right? Yeah. So I think we've all been through this. And if I look back over my own life, I look at things, even small things in our lives, like we wish we'd said something. And you look back at it later the same day and you're like, gosh, why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I say something? Or we look back at a boardroom moment and we think, I could have said that. Why didn't I do that? And you think of what held you back. And so absolutely, I have many of those moments in my life, but it really was something that I noticed as a pattern in very accomplished people even. And, we always look at the person that hasn't failure to launch, right? The person that hasn't jumped. It's common in all of us. And that was what I found so interesting is this is something we all have. This is something that from the C-suite to the brand newbie that just got there today and got their employee badge. And it really is an equalizer. And that was what I found so fascinating and wanted to be able to help people with it is, it doesn't matter what your role is, we all do have this, and I call them the backup singers in our heads.
Yeah.
We got to get them singing in harmony so that we can truly walk into the spotlight of our own lives. And it's the influence we've been given throughout our lives and how we choose to take that advice or put it in its rightful place so that you can listen to your own voice and trust your own intuition.
What's the cost of not, like, when I think about giving myself permission, what's the cost of not giving myself permission? I'm assuming that, I know the book talked a lot about being stuck, but talk about what that looks like for people.
I think it looks different for everybody, truthfully. I think some people can make peace with that and say, I've chosen this path, okay. But I think a lot of us have that what if conversation with ourselves. And it nags, right? That true
Yeah.
voice within you nags, and it is the what if I had, what if I had, what if I had. And there's a piece of you that's never quite complete because of that. And it shows up as regret. It shows up as, a lot of different things for us, but it doesn't have to. And I think that's the thing that so many people forget, is this is something that's completely within your control. And you've had the power all along. And so that's when I was naming the book, that was where the subtitle came from. It's reclaiming the power of your own voice. It's there. It's been there all along. We just sort of cloud it with all these other things.
Do you think women struggle with this more than men?
Absolutely. And what's funny, it's very funny because as I was doing the research, I did a ton of research on this book. There's like 400 citations, and don't worry, I ungeek it for everybody. But I was doing a lot of interviews, and as I was talking to both men and women, I think talk about it more, but men definitely deal with this as well. But it is actually also the way that we are raised, the way we're socialized, and it's actually the way we process information differently too. So there are actual biological and gender differences too. So definitely some differences in that, but it's also cultural differences in the way we're raised. So there's a ton of things that go into it, but by and large, women do tend to have a little more struggle with this. So I actually wrote the book a little bit more geared towards the women.
Yeah, I would think so. I would also think, like, when I'm curious, I'm trying to think back on my own life, and I had a lot of trouble finding my own voice. I was raised as many people were, in a heavily addicted family. And so in an effort to keep our house as happy as you could, my mother was always telling us what we saw wasn't true. And she would do that out of love. Like, you would know that, like, your uncle and your dad, like, something wasn't right, and you would say something, and she would say, no, 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 they, this or that. And so I lost the ability to trust my own voice, and therefore lost the ability to speak up. I just didn't want to cause any trouble. So I'm trying to think about, like, the journey of finding my voice. So if I'm listening to this, and beyond, I've gotten your book, what are some of the steps that I take to start to reclaim my voice? Because I love that you say reclaim, because I love to watch little kids, anybody under the age of 5 who is not been socialized out of them. I mean, they take anything they want. They demand anything they want. They cry in a second. They laugh in a second. They're so in the moment of taking anything they want because nobody's told them they couldn't. So I do like this idea of reclaiming, because I imagine that's who we are at our inner core.
Absolutely. And so it's funny, I've had people ask me, they're like, how's a salesperson writing a book about this?
Yeah.
And it's because it's actually a sales conversation with yourself. At the core of it, it's going back to that inner 5-year-old. That 5-year-old knows what they want. 5-year-olds are the best salespeople on the planet.
Yes.
They know exactly what they want. They're not afraid to get it. They're not afraid to ask for it. And they're singularly focused. So it's tapping back into that 5-year-old and recognizing they're still there. And so you do know what that is. So some of those steps are, first of all, quieting those voices, but you can't quiet them until you know who they are. So you just said something really powerful, Meridith, which is you know your mom's voice is one of those backup singers.
Yeah.
And you also know why. She was coping just the same. And that was her doing the best she could do in the circumstances she was in and trying to protect you.
Hmm.
And I also would bet that your mom's voice comes up maybe when you're crossing the street, because she probably taught you to look both ways before you cross the street.
Right.
So your mom's voice comes up in both good and maybe not so positive ways in your head in the same day.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there are moments during the day she gets a solo, and there are moments during the day maybe she doesn't get a solo.
Right. Right.
And we have to rectify that. And so first of all is just take an inventory of the chorus in your head and
Yeah.
decide the ones you want to keep, the ones you don't. And then you start deciding, okay, these are the front row, these are the back row. And you literally go through that exercise and decide who stays, because a lot of times we are keeping voices and we are keeping them on repeat that are not serving us. And we have to remember, we get to choose. You get to choose the ones you have on repeat in your brain. And we don't think about that. We don't think about the fact that we get to decide. And I know similarly to you, I have some of those records in my head that are on repeat, and it's like, where's that coming from? Like that it's a complete non-reality for me today, but I still hear this in my head, you know?
Yeah.
Like I hear my grandmother, who grew up in the 20s, her reality is clearly not mine, but I
Yeah.
hear her lessons, and it's like, no, this doesn't fit. So you have to decide, what do you want to keep? What do you want to toss? So you take a little emotional closet inventory, get rid of that stuff, keep the ones you want. Then you decide how you want to take them forward. And that's really why it's called the permission mission. You're going on your own journey. Your mission is to find your own permission, but you decide which ones go with you. And then the next step is really deciding, okay, if this is where I'm going and these are the voices that are going with me, how are they going to serve me
Yeah.
towards my goal? You know, which ones are going to get those solos to help me go forward towards where I want? But I have to decide what I want. And it's recognizing that. And maybe your goals have actually changed. And that's sometimes the hardest part for most people, is deciding what they even want, because you've listened to those for so long. And this is the thing I hear from a lot of people. They say, I don't even know what I want because I did what all those voices told me.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, we're just trying to keep our heads above water. And
Totally.
somebody says, "What do you want?" And you're like, "Oh my God, I haven't thought about what I wanted, since, for so long." I mean, I go to work, I go to the gym, I
Yeah.
pay my taxes, I pay my bills. I mean, I'm just, everything's a family obligation here and there, that kind of taking that space and taking that time and thinking, what is the life that I want? What is it that I want? And kind of really beginning there. But this all sounds so simple, which I really believe that it is, but it
Yeah.
isn't easy, right? I mean,
It's
like,
not. Yeah.
yeah, like I've had these,
It's simple, but not easy. You said it.
yeah, I've had these negative voices in my head. Like, so are there, are there simple ways that you encourage people to start to do this?
Yeah, but going back to what you just said, though, it's, you have to quiet those voices to even be able to determine what you want. And that's the thing. Most people think, I have to come up with a plan. I have to come up with a plan. You cannot come up with the plan until you quiet those voices. They do it backwards. They
Yeah.
literally do it backwards. So quiet the voices, come up with the plan, sit with yourself, figure it. You may need to try a bunch of stuff to even see what you like now.
Yeah.
And so do that. Then the next thing is, you start taking baby steps. And this is where a lot of people might struggle with too, because there's this feeling then all of a sudden, okay, well, now I have to make some big sweeping move. Maybe not. Maybe you unhook the velvet rope and take one step. It's okay. And that's movement. That's change. That's movement forward. Take one step and then celebrate that step. Celebrate the step forward. And we think grandiose moves. We think, oh, they quit their job and started their own company and they started a side hustle. Doesn't have to be some huge thing. Celebrate the move forward, whatever that is. And that's your mission. That's your permission mission. You gave yourself permission to do that. And whatever your pace is the right pace.
Mm,
And I think people need to hear that,
I would
because
agree.
you can't run somebody else's race. And that's the other thing I would tell people. Do not compare yourself to somebody else. That's the other piece of this. And then from that, you look at where the path is taking you. Are you staying on the track you want to, or do you need to take a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn? It's your mission. You're going to go where this journey takes you, that you want to go. If it takes lefts, rights, U-turns, it's completely fine. You're following where your intuition wants you to go. It's your journey.
Were there parts of this book, like what were the most, I'm curious what the most challenging parts as you got dug into the research, and then anything that really surprised you?
Ooh, wow. Okay. So first of all, I could have researched for months more.
Yeah.
Because there were so many things. When I got into the research part of it, Meredith, there was so much more research that I found. It was really interesting because I went into the psychology part and I went into the communication part, which went so much deeper. There was so much more. I went into family systems. There was so much more there, so rich. So I could have stayed in that for months and months and months more. And I researched a ton, which was fascinating. So that was really interesting in terms of just human behavior, how we create our own systems, create our systems in our minds. So that was really cool. The thing that surprised me about it, though, is once I took that and I started talking to people and sort of socializing the idea and asking people about this, how incredibly open people were about it. When I brought up the word permission, and I was just testing it, just testing the waters, and people were like, oh my God, I can't do that for myself.
Wow.
And I, first of all, I appreciate everybody that was willing to talk to me about this, but people were so open about it. And so my next question was always, well, tell me more about that. Like, what is it about permission that you feel like you can't grant
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah.
Almost everybody had the same answer. Those that could not grant it to themselves said, I'm not sure.
Interesting.
And then, I'd sit and just kind of unpack with them. And I wasn't coaching. I was just unpacking because I didn't want to guide, right? I wanted them to explore. I wasn't coaching. And it was so interesting to hear their stories, because a lot of times they didn't know. They had to go through the inventory. And I think that's a lot of our journey, is we don't know why.
Right.
We had to go inside. And for me, just full disclosure, full transparency, that was my own journey. I didn't know why. It was completely an internal conversation. It was a conversation with myself that I had to have.
Wow. Well, Cindy, it's hard to believe, but we are about at the end of this podcast, and I always like to end with two questions. I mean, if people were going to read this book and they're facing the uncertainty of 2026, what's your greatest piece of advice for them? The other question is, and you can answer them in either direction, how do people find out about you? How do they find out about the book? How do they find out about all the great work that you have around sales, leadership, and learning to find your voice?
So Meredith, it actually cut out on your first question. Ask it one more time for me.
Yeah. So the first question is, what is your greatest piece of advice around finding your voice and really navigating uncertainty in 2026?
So the greatest piece of advice that I would have is, do not feel like you have to seek it externally. You actually do know the answers. And I think so often we feel that we need to socialize the thoughts in our heads to get feedback. And I do think there's immense value in that. I'm a coach. I have 2 coaches of my own. I think there's great value in it. But I think the way that you socialize the ideas is you get that feedback so that you can bring it back to yourself. And then you do trust your instinct. You do trust your own voice. You're getting information, you're researching, you're gathering data to be able to validate what you already know. I do think we know, and we all been there, where if we don't trust our gut, you feel it and you know better. You absolutely know better. So that's what I would say in terms of navigating right now. Trust that instinct. They know.
Great. And how do people find out about you? Where do they get the book? Where do they find out all your great sales information?
They can go to drcindy.com, and you can find me at 1ST Lady of Sales. And the book is on sale at pre-sale at all major retailers, and they can find it right now. So thank you so much for asking.
Great. It is a fantastic book. Something that is really needed in today's uncertain marketplace is to find your voice, tap into your voice, give yourself the permission to speak up, know what you want, go for what you want. And all of that is going to help you turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. Dr. Cindy, it's been awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for your time today. And audience, we'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Ask for Change. And together, we're going to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. I'll see you then.